So I wanted to tell you, I took the trash out late tonight, about 10:43. There was a gentleman walking around the railroad tracks, singing some sort of ditty, if you will. Stood for the longest time out there by our trash cans, and right now we don't have a yard light. It's not working. And the sensor light on the garage burned out and it needs replaced. And let me tell you, I about freaked out. I called my mom on this. I didn't have my cell phone, so I took the house cordless phone with me, and I took that phone out there and I let her know in a quiet voice, there's a weird man out here hanging along the railroad tracks. Made me feel a little bit safer while I took the trash out, but he still hung out back there after I took the trash out. I think he was waiting on somebody, if you catch my drift. So if anything ever happens to me, God forbid, I told y'all. I came back in the house, was sitting down talking to her on the phone. It was going for about 11 o'clock-ish. The light on the front porch comes on, and I hear this motion of the rocking glider move out there, and I thought, what is that commotion going on? Something told me to open the door. Oh, my land in heaven. 4 raccoons, a mama, a daddy, and 2 small babies. And they scampered about when that light came on. They went right out to the sewer. And I even opened the door, and I went out on the porch. What was I thinking? It's not like they want to have a conversation with little old me. But anyway, I had to share that with you. And they didn't come back, or they just went down to the sewer as far as I know. And I ain't going to find out any more information on that. But I'm going to try to look into some safe removal methods of those things, because I do not like raccoons. No, sirree, Bob. Let's not forget when I had one out here in the backyard that grabbed a hold of the broom and went up and down with me and thought he was having a grand old time while I was scared out of my wits' end. Anyway, enough of that. We're going to do a book review. I finished book 1 of book 2. I'm working on book 2, which is Unforgiven. The first one is Creed's Honor. Now I'm going to read to you what she says it's about, and then look at that. That's how many pages I've marked. She's one of my favorites. And when I seen this book cover, let alone 2 books in one, I got this at Goodwill. I said, I gotta have it. So, here we go. If I can get my glasses on right. Yes, the special occasion glasses. I'm breaking those out. Here we go. Creed's Honor. Connor Creed knows exactly who he is. A hard-working rancher carrying on his uncle's legacy in Lonesome Bend, Colorado. Maybe a small-town cowboy's life isn't his dream, but he owes the man who took him in as a kid. When he meets Tricia McCall, a newcomer to the small town, he discovers a kindred spirit who knows a thing or two of her own, living someone else's dream. As they each struggle with their own dreams together, they might just find their own dreams in Lonesome Bend. So, let's just get right down to it. There's these 2 twins. And, Donna, you're talking without the hairbrush. First mistake. There's these 2 twins. Connor and Brody. That was taken in by Kim and Davis, and as kids. And Tricia is the great-granddaughter to Natty McCall. So, we're going to get right down to it. We're going to start with the first paper clip. I want to make you read this book. I want to make you put in the effort to pick up this paperback and turn the pages, because you will not regret it. So here we go. I'm not bitter, Connor retorted, knowing that his stand-in mom said was true. He was bitter over what he perceived as Brody's betrayal of his own trust, over the way he'd never met the right woman, as so many guys knew that he had, Stephen in particular. Don't try to BS me, Connor, Kim said. I know you better than you know yourself. You've taken up with Tricia, and there's not a darn thing wrong with that. Man up, why don't you, and ask her out. To do what? Connor scuffed, strangely unsettled by the idea of making a move on Tricia. What if she says no, and what if she said yes? Go to a hoedown? Or maybe to some rummage sale / chili feed? Anyway, she has a company and a little girl. Sasha, Kim clarified knowledgeably. She's Tricia's best friend daughter, and she's 10 years old. Also, she's horse crazy like most girls that age. Meaning? Meaning, you thick-headed cowboy, Kim replied, with an exaggerated patience and wry affection, that if you invite Sasha to go riding on the ranch, Tricia will automatically come with her. That's how Davis and I fell in love, you know. We were on a trail ride together with a bunch of friends, and the first night we got talking by the campfire, and it was a happy trails from then on. We've been traveling side by side ever since. In that case, Connor answered in his dry tone, I'll take care to avoid trail rides. Kim quirked a smile. Don't give up your day job, she whispered before turning to walk away. You'd never make it as a comedian. So I'm going to let you stew on that one. We're going to go to page 129. Connor lifted one shoulder and lowered it again. His grin didn't falter. Natty called me last night and asked me to wrap the pipes. I crawled around under the house with a flashlight for a while, making sure there weren't any obvious leaks, and then I checked the situation in the basement. He paused, ran his eyes lightly over Tricia's rumpled hair coming loose from her braid, before letting his gaze rest on her lips for one tingly moment. The padlock on the cellar door probably rusted through years ago. I didn't need the key. Natty told me about it. At last, Tricia found the presence of mind to go back up so Connor could step into the kitchen. Now he stood a head taller. I'd be happy to replace it, he added. His eyes narrowed a little as he watched her, as if he'd suddenly noticed something new and disturbed about her. Replace what? She asked. The grin returned, faintly innocent and at the same time affable, even friendly. The padlock, he prompted, the same guessing game tone he used before moments. It was the most ordinary conversation about padlocks and plumbing, for Pete's sake, so why did she feel like a shy debutante about to step out onto the dance floor at her coming-out ball? Oh, yeah, she managed. Right, the padlock. Are these two really talking about the padlock? Okay, it looks like this is going to be a big situation for us because I marked both pages. 164. Tricia crouched next to the old woman's chair, her vision blurred, hot, sudden tears. Despite Natty's advanced age and her recent health issues, the thought of her passing away was almost inconceivable. No matter what, Tricia said, her throat thick with the same tears that were stinging in her eyes, Winston will be fine. I promise you that. She's talking about her cat. Some people know this and some people don't. Grandma was concerned about Sam. That part got to me. There was a conversation. She was like, will you be sure you can take care of Sam on your own? And that was about 4 months before she took sick. And I said, are you kidding? I'll treat him as if he's my own. But she is my own. And she died laughing. She was, he's mine. I never forgot that. Natty rested one cool papery palm against Tricia's cheek. I believe you, she said tenderly, but can you promise me that you will be fine as well? I'd feel so much better if you were married. Tricia gave her a small strangled giggle, and as she stood straight up, she felt tears, torn between going up to see Sasha, the 10-year-old. It was past the girl's bedtime, and keeping Natty company in her dearly familiar kitchen. I can take care of myself, she reminded her beloved great-grandma softly. Isn't that better than being married just for the sake of, well, being married? Natty chuckled fondly, shook her head once. I know you think I'm old-fashioned, she said, and you're at least partially right. But it's a natural thing, Tricia, for a man and a woman to love and depend upon each other. Certain members of your mother's generation, and yours too, seem to see men as what the word, I would say, dispensable. And I think that's sad. As tired as Natty looked, the twinkle was back in her eyes. There's nothing worse than a bad man, I'll grant you that, she summed up, waggling an index finger at Tricia. But there is also nothing better than a good one. Tricia laughed. Duly noted. She said, shall I help you back up to bed? I can help myself back up to bed, Natty informed her. Besides, I haven't finished my tea, and I may have even a second cup. Tricia was moving away by then, though her pace was reluctant, struggling out of her coat as she started for the hallway at the staircase beyond. "If you need anything, I'll be fine," Natty said, making a shooting motion with one hand. "You think about what I said, Tricia McCall. Fact is, I'm not sure you'd know a good man if he was standing up right in front of you." Okay. We're going to move to page 183. In that case, Tricia figured it was more of a case of nurture versus than nature. Connor was the way he was because, despite losing both parents, he'd been raised in a loving household. It had mattered to Davis and Kim Creed how they raised their infant nephews and to turn out to be, which I thought was wonderful. Okay. Page 217. And yes, I'm crying already. "Love hurts," she thought, as the wispy strains of an old song drifted up from her memory. That was the paradox. Love did hurt, though not always, of course. Yet, just as the poet said, it was surely better to have loved than to never have loved at all. "Let's go upstairs and see how Natty's doing," Tricia said. "She needs to know you're all right, for one thing." Sasha nodded and led the way. Her small hand was clasping Tricia. They arrived to find Natty looking much less restored, and her color was good, and her eyes shining, chatting happily away while Connor stood at the stove listening and tendering a whole new batch of grilled cheese sandwiches. Sasha went straight to Natty, and the old woman gathered the child into an embrace. Tricia had to look away, as if she hadn't, she would have to be burst out crying for sure. But just as luck or fate would have it, her gaze landed on Connor's face, and stuck there. Something silent and powerful passed between them. For Tricia, it was as if two souls had met and joined in a way their bodies never had, sealing some sort of bargain, or renewing one, that was older than the stars. Tricia might have thought she was going crazy if she hadn't seen a flicker of confounded shock ignite in Connor's eyes, and a heartbeat. The look was gone, but it was there again, all right, proof that he'd felt something too. Deftly, Connor picked up a spatula and scooped one of the golden crisp sandwiches he made onto a plate, carried it over to Natty. Natty looked up at Tricia, who was still trying to recover from her equilibrium. "Give me one moment." And winked. "He even cooks," she said, as though Connor wasn't standing right there, hearing every word. If I were 60 years younger, Tricia McCall, I'd give you a run for your money." Tricia's cheeks blazed. Connor gave her one of those tilted grins, proudly to let her know that he was enjoying the obvious discomfort. Sasha sank into her chair nearest Natty and chimed, "That sandwich smells a lot better than the ones Tricia made. Hers were burnt offerings." Connor laughed at that, breaking the spell he had over Tricia. "Want one short stop?" he asked the child. "Yes, please." And I'll stop on that because I want you to read there. We're going to move forward. Page 233. "Tell me what's the matter then," Natty insisted quietly. "You're moping, Tricia. Does this mood of yours have something to do with that man who you were seeing before you left Seattle?" Tricia frowned. "Hunter?" "Yes," Natty said. Her tone wasn't exactly disdainful, but it was crisp. "That's it, Hunter." Tricia nodded. "Have you ever been very, very sure of something," she began, "or of somebody, only to find out, when push came to shove, that you're not so sure after all?" Natty giggled and broke the tension. "No," she said, "I haven't. I'm sure that my Henry from day one, when I first set eyes on him, to the day that we laid him to rest. God kept him fine and honorable soul, but we're not discussing me, are we, dear? We're talking about you and the trooper." "Hunter," Tricia corrected wryly. "Oh, whoever," Natty retorted with a wave of one hand. Tricia couldn't help but smile. Sad sack that she was these days. "Stop it. You know perfectly well Hunter's name, and there's nothing wrong with your hearing or your memory." "All right," Natty conceded sweetly with another wave of her hand. The huge diamond in her wedding engagement ring flashed the sunlight through the window. "Hunter, then. I take it he's the quote-unquote thing you were, quote, very sure, end quote, about, and now not so much." "Not so much." Tricia confessed with regret. While she wasn't sure how she felt about Hunter, she knew now that she should be sure, or at least should have some idea. The only certainty here was, as far as she could say, was uncertainty. But she had figured out this much. She wasn't going on a romantic cruise with one man when she had so enjoyed being kissed by another, even if that kiss was bound to lead to nowhere. Yes, by that time, Connor and Tricia had shared a brief kiss. We're going to page 244. Oh. She also looked annoyed. I declare, Connor Creed, she said, causing him to rock back slightly on his boot heels. For an intelligent man, you can be remarkably obtuse. He blinked, knowing with all the while that he lived to regret it, asked, "What are you talking about?" Natty looked back over one shoulder, probably making sure the moving men were doing their job, what she hired them to do, but her blue eyes had a chill in them when they landed on Connor again. The dog sighed and sat down. "I'm talking about Tricia," Natty said in a stage whisper, "and if you weren't such a lunkhead, you'd have known without asking." Connor felt like that sinking sensation again. It was through the floor that suddenly turned into foam rubber. "What about Tricia?" "You know darn well what about Tricia," Natty lectured. "Are you really truly going to stand there and do nothing while she makes the biggest mistake of her life?" They were standing in the entryway. The moving men were even listening in. So Connor took Natty by the elbow and escorted her in the small parlor where were plenty of chairs. Valentino slodged reluctantly along. That's the dog. Apparently resigned to go with the flow. There was something said about that to Connor's mind, as if the dog knew he was being ditched and decided not to fight it. "Sit," he told the animal. "I beg your pardon," Natty demanded, feathers ruffled right up again. Connor chuckled. "I was talking to Bill here," he said. Natty frowned. "Bill?" "The canine formerly known as Valentino," Connor explained. Natty sank into a prissy little chair. Now there were tears in her eyes. Connor's heart skittered up a bit in his throat, because he hated when this woman cried. He never knew what to do or say. "It's all so sad," Natty said in a short silence. Connor dropped to one knee and ruffled the dog's ears. And Natty McCall's and Lonesome Ben. "What's sad, Natty?" he said quietly. "You leaving this house? If you don't want to go, just say so. I'll have the guys pack up your stuff out of here in no time." Natty interrupted him with a shake of her head. She dabbed at her eyes with lace-trimmed hanky plucked from her pocket of her sparkly jacket. "It's time for me to go," she said. Something in her tone gave Connor a chill. "I hope you didn't mean the way it sounded," he said carefully. "To Denver," she clarified with a most giggle. "Connor, I'm an old woman, but I'm not so far gone that I don't have a passion I don't know passion when I see it, that I don't know love." "Whoa," Connor said gravely. "Passion? Love? You've lost me again." Natty shook her head at a very small jaw. "Men," she scoffed, her mild tone and her eyes fiery. Are you just going to let Tricia move back to Seattle without even giving the two of you a chance?" Tricia's plans were never too far from his mind, but the facts had a way of pouncing on him when he wasn't paying attention. He got to his feet after murmuring a few soothing words to the dog. "I can't make Tricia stay in Lonesome Ben, Natty," he said quietly. "She's a grown woman with her own plans." He paused and cleared his throat, remembering the ski guy in the screensaver picture. "Anyway, there's somebody else in her life, somebody she wants to get back to." Natty waved a hand at him. "Nonsense. Tricia's attracted to you, Connor. She told me so just yesterday. She went so far to confide that she's been fooling herself about having this future with Hunter." Connor didn't know what to say. Tricia had responded to his kiss. He knew that, and every time they were in the same room the air crackled. So they were attracted to each other. That was a far cry from being in love, and if Connor had wanted a woman that was good at sex, well, hell, there has always been no shortage of that. The problem was that Connor wanted a lot more than a bedmate. He wanted a full-time partner, a confidant, somebody he could trust all these dusty dreams of his with. He wanted kids, dogs running every which way. He wanted a family. And he wasn't willing to settle for less, even if it meant being alone for the rest of his life. "Bill and I had better get going," he said, "and we're burning daylight." With that, He crossed Natty's chair, bent and kissed her lightly on the forehead. Goodbye, Natty, and if you need anything at all, you just let me know. She put a hand on his coat sleeve and held it for a moment before letting go. His last image of Natty McCall was of her sitting there in the slipper chair, dressed up like Elvis, her eyes much bluer for the sorrow they held. Okay, the next page I marked was page 253. He was good-looking and offhandedly in a game show host kind of way, all that teeth and hair. Tricia, I wasn't expecting you. I'm sorry, Tricia said, forgetting her firm decision not to apologize. I should have called. Hunter sighed, shoved a hand through his hair. He didn't seem to know what to do or say. Once or twice he glanced back at the half-open door leading into his loft. Well, he stammered out, I guess there's no harm done. Good, Tricia said. Puzzle pieces were falling into place. What an idiot she'd been, she was thinking. What a naive, romantic idiot. Hunter wasn't alone, and he probably hadn't been, from the day that she left for Colorado intending to settle for her dad's estate and return right away. She smiled. If she cared about Hunter, she might have said something catty like, Aren't you going to ask me in? If she cared, she'd have been hurt or angry because she knew every fiber of her being, of the woman inside, probably listening at the door, maybe dressed, maybe not. Instead, she tremendous sigh of relief, and she laughed. It's okay, Hunter. I just came by to tell you I won't be coming along on that cruise, but thanks anyway. Hunter's eyes narrowed and his mouth dropped open for a moment, but before he regained control, enormously successful in just every area of his life. He wasn't used to rejection. A face appeared in the opening between the door and the frame. Hunter's guest was pretty, with spiky blonde hair and way too young for him. What cruise? Lolita asked, pouting. Oops, Tricia said, amused. Hunter reddened. Monica has been doing some remodeling for me, along with a few other things, Tricia thought. Monica, Hunter snapped, go back inside. I want to know about this cruise, Monica said. It's all right. Been a big mistake, Tricia told the young woman cheerfully. I must be at the wrong building. Oh, Monica replied, still confused but not willing to be mollified with that. She retreated and closed the door to Hunter's loft. It's just that you two were gone so long. Or that you were gone so long, Hunter said miserably. Then he brightened. But now you're back. Tricia smiled and shook her head. I'm not back, Hunter. She told him, not the way you mean anyway. If you'll just give us a chance, the cruise. No cruise, Tricia said, to push the door button down. Goodbye, Hunter. Have an excellent life. She truly meant those words. It was over. She was free. We're going to move on. Okay, page 342. It came back to her then, some of what Brody had said to her that day at the bank. Connor cares for you. When he falls for somebody, he falls hard. He's rock solid, the original straight shooter, the kind of guy most women think isn't even out there anymore. And that's the kind of guy that every woman wishes for, right? Okay. Page 354. Okay. 353. Why would you say that? Because you've seen my soul and I've seen yours, Connor replied, kissing her forehead. If you're like me, you're happy, but you're scared, too. He drew back just far enough to hook a finger underneath her chin and lift, so that she had to look at him. We love each other, Tricia, he reminded her. We'll have to find our way forward from here, like everybody else, but we'll make it one step at a time. We'll make it. Tricia relaxed with a soft sigh, but put her arms around Connor, let herself lean into him. Her cheek rested against his heart. She could feel the strong, steady beat of it. You're right, she said, thinking of her parents and their ill-fated union. Nobody gets a guarantee, do they? He stroked her hair, coming loose from its usually tiny braid. Nobody gets a guarantee, he agreed. But we can stack the odds in our favor, Tricia. How? She asked, thinking that if she loved this man any more than she already did, she'd burst from it. Davis told me that he and Kim stayed married all these years because neither of them was willing to give up on each other. They scrap once in a while. They're both strong-minded people, and they've had their share of disappointments and setbacks, but they don't quit. Tricia nodded, loving the feel of the Connor Creed sent into him, the warm strength of his arms around her. the pressure of his chest and hips. Natty adored my great-grandfather, Henry. But according to her, the secret of a good marriage is not expecting to be happy all the time, because no one is. Whenever she and Henry went through tough times, Natty said they made sure they were on the same side, stood shoulder to shoulder, and took whatever came their way. Natty's a pioneer, Connor said with amused admiration. And he is just an amazing man. What I want you to know, I want you to read this book. I give Connor's Creed, Linda Lael Miller, a 9, which is a pretty good rating. I'm working on reading Unforgiven by B.J. Daniels. It's taken me a little bit longer because it's not quite my cup of tea, but I will get through it. So, 9, read the book. What question should you be asking yourself? Well, does Brody, the twin brother to Connor, he's already given, Trisha the right act. But does he have feelings for Trisha? Because in the past, there was an ex-girlfriend involved in the book, and Connor always blamed his brother for that breakup. Could another breakup be in the future? The only way to find out is to read the book. And did they wind up together? The only way to find out is to read the book. So it's a 9, and until next time, that's one of your book reviews. Next up, I'm going to sing a song, so you don't want to go nowhere.